Hey guys, so today we're going to be talking about a new hidden mechanic added to Helldivers 2. Now, technically, this hidden mechanic was supposed to be in the game since launch, but you haven't heard of it because, as far as I know, it has not been working since launch. And they happen to fix how these stats work, and I don't know if they fixed that in this last patch. I honestly don't think so. I am speculating they fixed it a few patches ago. I'm trying to find out exactly when, but with that being said, it is now working, and it has only been working within the last few patches. Not 100% sure, but with that being said, what is this brand new hidden mechanic that we now have to worry about with our weapons? And that is the status buildup once again with enemies. With the different changes to status, like targeting the coyote on the warrior, the brood commander, the devastator, we have been doing testing, and we basically figured out that they fixed the broken status mechanic since launch. So you guys might recognize this little notepad that I brought up on my stealth nerfs video the other day, and you might have noticed how I said they changed the warrior from 2.0 to 2.1. And you might have seen these other numbers here, but I didn't mention them because I was under the impression that this mechanic has been broken and was still broken, and they actually fixed it. Again, I don't know when. It was definitely in the last few patches, though. And so basically, what are these numbers? So essentially how it works is when you're building up status on an enemy, the coyote does 2 status strength per bullet. Let's say there's an enemy that has a minimum of 4.0 status. You have to shoot them twice to be able to apply status. So what is this second number? Well, each enemy has a minimum threshold for status and also a maximum threshold for status. And what is the difference between the minimum threshold and the maximum threshold? So the minimum threshold means you need to apply at least, in the case of the warrior, well, now it's 2.1, you need to apply at least 2.1 status to light this enemy on fire. To have a chance to light this enemy on fire. However, if you apply the maximum threshold, then you are guaranteed to light them on fire. Now, this doesn't only affect fire. This applies to all status effects: fire, stun, and gas. So I'm going to throw up some footage over the video now where we are using the pummeler, which the pummeler was recently buffed to have a 2.0 stun buildup value per bullet. And I am testing it out on the warriors, which have a 2.0 minimum status threshold. So that means that one pummeler bullet has a chance to stun one warrior, but they have a maximum threshold of 3.0. So if you shoot one bullet at a warrior, you essentially have a chance to stun it, but you might need 2 bullets. And hopefully I picked a good clip. You can see where I am shooting warriors, and some of them are getting stunned in 1 bullet and some of them are not. Now let's go ahead and transition over to the bots again, where they fixed this system. And you thought that devastators were the only enemy that requires another bullet from the coyote. Well, actually, the troopers on the bots have a minimum fire status threshold of 2.0, and I believe their maximum is 3. You have a chance to light them on fire in 1 bullet, and then you will definitely light them on fire in 2 bullets because you're applying 4 of that fire status. And as you can see in the background footage, that some of these bots are getting lit on fire and dying instantly, and some of them are not. So how does this system sort of affect our gameplay? And what are some of the problems with this system that I personally have? Number 1, we never got this in the patch notes that this system was fixed. Never heard a word about it. I don't know if it was fixed this last patch. I don't know if it was fixed 3 patches ago. I don't know if it was fixed 4 patches ago. And it also just so happens that I believe they fixed it maybe like 3 patches ago, because it also just so happens to be a fact that a lot of people have been complaining about status effects feeling inconsistent in the last couple patches. I know there is also just a status bug where it sometimes just won't apply to enemies at all. But with that being said, I do believe this system leads to inconsistent feeling effects. Like, for example, if I go into a game and I shoot warriors with 1 bullet and they stun, and then next thing you know, I shoot a warrior once and he still swipes me anyway. It's just going to lead to me as a player feeling confused. And again, I do think there's something going on here where it's like, I don't know if this system 100% wasn't working since launch, but I do know that when I played with the pummeler in the past, when I played with other weapons that built up status, I would count the amount of shots that it took to stun an enemy, and I would min-max with it using that. Like back when the pummeler first came out, I would stun an enemy and I would swap weapons to my secondary to finish that enemy off with a more powerful weapon. So now I would honestly like to play an excerpt from an old Shams interview, how 6 million Call of Duty players sent Helldivers 2 into a tailspin, because what he says here, I truly have a comment on, and it sort of relates to what we're about to talk about.
The real challenges has been for us to maintain our integrity. The slogan for the studio is a game for everyone is a game for no one. So we did not set out to design Helldivers for a wide audience. We made it for a niche audience. And our belief is that if you make an uncompromising game experience for a very specific audience, you have the ability to resonate far outside of it. Now, we've seen this happen many times in video games and even outside the games. From software games, buck the trend. They were very brutally hard, where every other game was about hand-holding. And that's, an entire genre, and a lot of success has been born out of that. Escape from Tarkov is the same thing. It bucks a lot of the PvP trends. So we did not make Helldivers for 6 million Call of Duty players. We absolutely didn't. But we do now have 6 million Call of Duty players who've bought our game.
Oh, wow.
And they are interested in different things compared to, say, the audience that comes from Escape from Tarkov or Arma.
Now, he mentions that they essentially were more into making a game that was like Tarkov or Arma rather than making a game for 6 million Call of Duty players. But personally, I don't resonate with either of those games. I played Helldivers because I heard it was a really cool horde shooter. And I would like to see a game that was more serving the genre of horde shooters rather than devs who want to make Tarkov, but they're compromising for the Call of Duty players. We have horde shooters like Left 4 Dead, DRG, Darktide even, similar to Space Marine, and I am a bit confused as to how this game has anything to do with Arma or Tarkov, and I'm also confused with how this game has anything to do with Call of Duty. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because there are now just inconsistent status effects built into the game. So when the warriors were 2 status buildup and the coyote was 2 status buildup, you could light enemies on fire in 1 shot. Potentially, because I'm not sure when they fixed this bug with status effects. So they basically went out of their way to change it to 2.1 to make sure that you could actually just never light them on fire with 1 shot. And we had the patch a while ago where we had so much spread on our SMGs and pistols. They finally conceded that and decided to get rid of that, and they doubled the drag. And then now they want to give the SMGs and pistols their own niche, and for some reason are doubling the drag again and changing things in a way that honestly just doesn't even make any sense. Like, why touch the status strength against multiple enemies? Now automaton troopers, and fixing this bug at the same time. Now the automaton troopers is another enemy on the list that could just randomly have different breakpoints compared to other enemies in the game, and the stuff keeps piling up. We found out the other day that Hive Guards got a stealth buff, and they are 35% durable in the face and 30% durable in the body. We found out that Berserkers got stealth buffed with more durability on their arms and legs. But if you wanted the light pen weapons to have a durable niche, then you should have given them much, much more durable damage. And ultimately, I saw a lot of comments about, oh, the coyote takes 1 more bullet. That's not a big deal. Yeah, okay, fine. It's not a big deal, but it's all of these little philosophies that are adding up that are personally adding to my own fatigue and, unfortunately, apathy for this game. Because now, it really just seems like instead of a mill sim with, I don't know, where the weapons are more realistic, I guess, it feels like there's 30 different random hidden stats I have to account for that are only harming me. when I can just go equip any explosive weapon in the game and I don't have to deal with at least half of these downsides anymore. The durability rebalance of enemies did not move the needle at all for any of these light pen weapons, and in some cases made them worse in different scenarios. Whereas explosive weapons, I just get to completely ignore the durability. And I'm even almost scared to say this because what's going to happen next patch? They're finally going to nerf explosive weapons, and then that's how we're going to level the playing field. Now, I will just make this pretty clear. What would move the needle is if you actually allow the niche weapons to work for their niche. So the pummeler did not need more damage, bro. The pummeler on launch was low damage, but very good stun, and I could swap to a secondary to finish off an enemy. But now the pummeler, for some reason, has way more damage and does not stun well, and it's inconsistent at stunning enemies like warriors, as I showed earlier. And the secondary I swapped to has all this drag, so now it's going to take more shots to do that. And ultimately, that was my favorite gun personally. I just want to equip a 65 damage pummeler that can stun enemies in 2 shots, and then I can swap to the Senator or Verdict and finish them off. That was a niche playstyle that I enjoyed. I played it on stream almost every day. People roasted me for saying Polar Patriots was a good warbond when it had the pummeler Verdict, both in that warbond, a combo built in it that I found niche, I enjoyed, and everyone was saying it was bad, and for some reason the developers nerfed my personal playstyle. And it's all of these niche playstyles that they just want to patch out of the game. Like, I just would equip the coyote and just blast enemies, but I do know for a fact there were players who would min-max and play smart and conserve their ammo. They would shoot each enemy once. A lot of people didn't do that, but some niche people did. So that they are getting rid of a lot of these niche playstyles and just somehow creating a meta, somehow pushing an explosive meta non-stop with every single update. Now, if you want to convince a player like me to play with a gun like the Knight or the Breaker, then flat out give me more ammo. Why does the Knight with the drum mag or the Breaker with the drum mag attachment only have 5 spare mags for the Knight and 4 spare mags for the Breaker? Why do I have to basically feel like I have to bring a supply pack for like mid-tier light pen, no like crazy bonus, stagger, status, any of that, but I'm constantly hunting for ammo on these weapons. My feedback for the Knight has not changed pretty much since launch. The gun is fun, but it is a bullet hose and it goes through ammo way too quickly. It needs like double the spare mags. And same with the regular Breaker. The regular Breaker has 4 spare mags with the drum mag attachment. And guess what gun also has 4 spare drum mags? The Breaker Incendiary. And they also still didn't bring back the 2 spare mags on the Breaker Incendiary either. These guns need much more ammo if you want to convince me as a player to play with them. Now, one thing I will say is that my flesh mob breakdown in my video the other day honestly was not the best. They did make flesh mobs a lot better to fight against by adding those weak points to the head, but there was just that weird inconsistency with the 2 heads not doing it. And then the thing about the health rebalance that kind of annoyed me a little bit was they lowered the health and raised the durability. And this was a net neutral. I said it was a net negative. It was a net neutral for everything. The heads are the benefit for ballistic weapons, but lowering the health and raising the durability buffs explosive weapons. And it's like, yes, now I'm kind of complaining about a buff, but also at the same time, it's just more so that I feel like there's a lack of understanding when it comes to that enemy, because explosives and fire is what killed the flesh mob. People were complaining about other weapons not doing that. The head weak points did solve that issue. Okay, I will say that absolutely. The head weak points absolutely solved that issue. But the problem with the durability system is that fire ignores it and explosive ignores it. And they also deal large amounts of damage to multiple, well, the explosives anyway, deal damage to multiple weak points. So I just feel like maybe I got a little bent out of shape about the health and durability rebalancing, because it's not hitting the mark, in my opinion, of what is going on with the meta of the weapons. And I just personally at least would like to get more clarification on what the intention was there. Because if the intention was to add weak points for ballistic weapons, okay, fine. And then if the intention truly was to buff explosives, okay, fine. But I would have liked to see that like detailed in the patch notes, a little dev note, because then it would have made a bit more sense to me. And I do feel like there is a communication issue with these patch notes because all of the weapons that got buffed, it was plainly stated, oh, the Liberator does 10 more damage and like 9 more durable damage. The Knight has like double durable damage now and 20 more damage. But all of the enemies, they said slightly increased durability. And it's not slight, it's 20%. That is a big leap. And then the Hive Guard was just completely hidden. That was not in the patch notes, and that was obviously done. And they lowered the fire multiplier on the Hive Guards and the Warriors, but they buffed the flamethrower ammo capacity. So the flamethrower ammo capacity buff honestly tells me that they knew they nerfed fire on these enemies. And ultimately what it comes down to is I don't want to be playing a game where I have to go to data miners and look up on the wiki about these 30 hidden stats so that I can optimize my gameplay. And ultimately what it comes down to is they're taking all of these fun niche mechanics out of the game. Now, I'll touch back on my video where I was covering the game director interview where they said that the warbonds are supposed to be fantasy. I want fantasy niche playstyles. I find that fun, but they have to be good. And somehow Helldivers has gone down a path where they say they want to give fantasy niche playstyles. That's what makes me tick, okay? But somehow all of the fantasy niche playstyles are bad, and just explosives keep winning again and again and again and again. And no, I'm not saying nerf explosives. Keep them the same, but stop adding this fire and stun and just status min-max values where they're just going to feel inconsistent with specific weapons like the coyote and the pummeler. Just make it work. Just make it simple. Make it, you know, the best status effect in this game? Stagger. Do you know why? Because you can land one pellet from the Punisher on an enemy that it can stagger, and that single pellet will stagger that enemy. I instantly get that feedback when I'm using that weapon consistently. And that's what I would like to see, is some consistency, because a lot of these mechanics just lead to inconsistency. When we had spread on the weapons, that's inconsistent. I can put my crosshair on the enemy, it doesn't hit. Inconsistency. Now we have 4 times the drag on pistols and SMGs. That is now just range inconsistency. Yes, at least I can close the range. But now an enemy has to be in 23 meters instead of 25 meters for me to one-shot it with a verdict. And it's stuff like this that really adds up. It's a bunch of small paper cuts adding up that is just honestly leading to my fatigue on this game. And now I will say what the best patches in this game were, hands down, just so it is very clear where my head is at. Number 1 was Omens of Tyranny. That launch of Illuminate was clean. There were a few bugs. The snake divers got added. The cars were like helium balloons. And yes, those are technically bugs that were in the game, and it was kind of funny. But the performance was good. Everything else about that patch was good. Second favorite patch was bugged patrols in the June patch. The big buff June patch was the first patch where Pilestat did a write-up for the game where he said, with the orbital precision strike, we never intended to throw this at enemies. We wanted to use this on structures, but that didn't stop the players from throwing it at anything, and therefore we're going to buff this niche playstyle. That was my favorite patch, and it was also bugged patrols, where a ton of people were complaining about spawn counts and the game was too difficult. Bugged patrols is an insanely good difficulty modifier. Only apply it to diff 10. Only apply it to the hardest difficulty. Okay? I want to play a horde shooter. I feel like I was not advertised a milsim. I feel like it was deceptive if the devs were trying to make a milsim. And I also feel like they're not making a milsim. What milsim where you have a Molotov, do the enemies sometimes not get lit on fire? Okay, that is not indicative of a milsim. So ultimately, that's the end of my rant. That's the new hidden mechanic. Tell me what you think in the comments down below. I'll see you guys next time.